Hello, everyone. Welcome to CEO Check-In. I am in a good mood today because I found out that my 83-year-old mother has an appointment to get a vaccine. Woohoo! Oh, I'm not supposed to say her age. She looks so much younger. Now she's going to be mad at me. I should not have taught her to use Instagram when I was quarantining with her in Westport. But I don't think she watches the live. I think she just looks at the feed, so I'm probably okay. But if you have loved ones who are essential workers or a parent who's in their 70s or 80s, I really hope that they are getting their vaccines and that this rollout will start to go way smoother, right? I think we need a COO of the vaccine rollout. So let's get this party started. Hi, Rabia. Hello, Alyssa. Hi, Rachel. We have a great guest on today. Hi, Sarah. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to CEO Check-In. We're going to spend 30 minutes together. I always bring on a guest. Well, I don't always bring on a guest, but I like to have guests. And today we're having on Rachel Beider, who is the founder and CEO of Press Modern Massage. It is a multi-million-dollar massage business that has several locations in the New York area. And Rachel started out like many masseuses with just a table that she had in her 5th floor walk up in Brooklyn, and people would come to her apartment. And then she wound up building a multi-million-dollar massage business. And you can read all about it in her new book called Massage MBA. That just hit the #1 bestseller in massage books on Amazon. I'm so excited for Rachel. She's also a mom and a mentor in the $1 Million Women community. Thank you for that, Rachel, and a good friend. So we're gonna have a great conversation today. But before we bring Rachel on, I always like to give the Go Big tip. And the Go Big tip today is to learn to manage your anxiety. People don't talk enough about the need to manage your anxiety as a founder and CEO. There are so many things that could go wrong in our businesses, and I think in 2020 we experienced all of them. And so a big part of our job is to figure out how we can stay calm, how we can manage the what if loop that sometimes plays in our head, right? What if we don't get the customers? What if we can't pay back the loan? What if the marketing campaign doesn't work? And the thing is, if you don't learn to manage that anxiety, one, it's going to eat you up and you're not going to have the right energy to bring to your business to grow it and seek help and join communities like $1 Million Women and other communities. And two, it's going to trickle out to your team. There's this expression that says, all rotten fish stink from the head. And that's a reference to the fact that in any company, no matter how big or small, if there's bad stuff happening at the top, the head of the fish, it's going to make the whole fish stink, right? And we don't want that. We don't want stinky fish companies. We want companies where you're leading from a calm, centered, positive place. And that is easier said than done during a pandemic and even in normal times, growing a small business with all the things we have to figure out about cash flow and people and strategy, which is why it's great to join a community like $1 Million Women. So if you're thinking about that, we do have a masterclass starting in late January, so do set up a call with us. You can go to scalewithjulia.com or email alex@juliapim.com. So today we're going to hear from Rachel about how she wrote her book, about her plans for Press Modern Massage, and how if you're a wellness practitioner or just any business owner, you can learn from some of the things that she got right in growing Press Modern Massage. All right, Rachel, we're going to bring you on, and here we go. I just saw her for this, and you got long hair now. I haven't seen you in so many months since the last event you came to for $1 Million Women back in 2020. Hey there, do you remember that event? It was like Valentine's Day or Galentine's Day, I think we called it, February 13th. I think that's the last time I saw you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh,
It's nice
so
to
happy
see
to
you.
see you again. Thank you. So now you got the long hair, you got a book, you got a baby.
Yeah, a lot of changes this year. I haven't had too many haircuts, that's for sure.
Exactly. But, I'm so excited for you about the book because, your journey, speaking of managing anxiety, you were very public in your book about the fact that you actually see anxiety as your superpower in a way. So I think I want to start there because I think that's something everyone's experiencing right now. Tell us how you manage your own anxiety and how that maybe impacted your ability to build this multi-million-dollar business.
Absolutely. It's funny. I think I always try to think about any quality that you have and how you can turn it on your head and what that looks like. And, for me, I have to say anxiety is my superpower. It's been one of those weird things that, you know, not letting my brain run too wild, but noticing all of the areas in which I have, missed opportunities or, potential or I feel like a lot of the business has grown because I've been anxious about situations. Like even I had this wonderful first location that was doing over 1 million in sales and was doing really, really well. And I had this thought one night, like, oh my gosh, what if something happens to that location? Like, what if they sell the building or there's a fire or, something horrific happens? I better open up in another neighborhood and build a little life raft just in case. And it's such a funny
Oh,
thing.
so that drove your expansion, actually, was
Yeah,
thinking I need
exactly.
to like have a little more insurance here. I can't be totally dependent on one location.
Exactly. I mean, and even when I zoom way back to even just starting my own practice, when I was working for a spa, I remember thinking, this was 2008, the economy was in flux, and what if I lose my job and I don't have any control over my income? And that was a really scary thought for me. So I feel like in a way, anxiety has sort of driven me and propelled me forward because I really, really wanted to make decisions from a place of control and from a place of abundance. And I knew that I could rely on myself to do that, but I was really anxious about relying on someone else for those things.
Well, I loved reading in your book how you decided to keep getting bigger and bigger spaces. You even borrowed money at some point. I think these are some of the things that women really struggle with in scaling up their businesses is, how do I know when I'm ready to make that leap, take that risk? So given that you say about yourself, like I struggle with a lot of anxiety, how did you do that?
I think it's a combination of, I've always felt like I want to maximize what I have before I grow. So even with one treatment room, you can divide that day in half and hire people to work, I'll work the morning, you'll work the evening. I always try to just, really maximize what I have and then grow from a place of, okay, I'm bursting at the seams. I've raised my prices. I've hired more employees and it's time. And so I can feel really, really confident in that step. And even that said, I'm not going to lie. I definitely cried every step of the way of every signing, every new lease, every bringing on a new employee. There's been a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, because I think, when you're doing those things, it's just a sign of big things. It's a sign that you're making big steps forward. And, for me, I feel like if you can harness that instinct, that energy and use it to drive you, it's maybe not a bad thing.
Well, I know that when you took out those loans and got the bigger space, that was probably one of the game-changing things that you did in terms of scaling up and started outsourcing, right? So you weren't doing all the massage. What did that sound like in your head? Because I think there are women thinking of that right now. Like, how did you talk yourself out of saying, oh, no, that's too scary. I can't do that. I don't have a business degree. Maybe it's not going to work. What did that sound
Yeah.
like in your head?
I mean, I think what you're touching on is that imposter syndrome that happens when you're like, you know what, I think I can do this. And then in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I have no business doing business. I don't have a business degree. This is terrifying, and feeling back and forth. And I think, that's the time where it's just the most important to reach out for help. Don't go it alone. Get a mentor, get a coach, get an accountability partner. That's the time where it's really, really important to get support. And for me, I opened my second location and I remember I was doing everything myself. I was doing the blogs, I was doing the hiring, I was doing, all of the PR, all of the marketing, all the emails. I was still massaging people. I was basically doing everything.
And sweeping up at night,
thinking,
probably, right? Before you closed up.
everything,
Yes.
everything. And I remember thinking, I feel like I'm failing all the time because I was just spread so thin. I was burning out. And I was at this tipping point where I was like, okay, I either need to learn how to delegate and ask for help, or I need to close because like this is not tenable. I was just so anxious all the time. I was having a really hard time with it. And I'm so glad at that point I reached out for help and I hired a couple of business coaches because I can never hire just one, and one was very strategic, numbers based, and one was very 30,000 foot view, big picture. But, I think it's just taking that step to get more help. Immediately, I became aware that, oh my gosh, you know what? I need to start delegating. I need to start trading on, less time for dollars. I need to actually make this work more for me. And it's scary in the beginning because, you don't necessarily have the funding to do it all yourself. I mean, to not do it all yourself. Like you don't necessarily have the finances to hire someone full time. But what didn't occur to me is you can hire a virtual assistant. You can hire a part-time person. It doesn't have to be this big, scary, full-time salaried position. And in fact, in the beginning, it shouldn't be. There are things that you can do to take stuff off your plate every single year, you know, to pass this on, that can either be automated or that can be done in, you know, in a different way by a virtual assistant. And, you know, there's that voice of resistance too, of even if you might think you can do it faster, when are you going to have time to do it really? Like, you have to just make
Absolutely.
sure.
And also, if you don't outsource it, then you're stuck doing it forever. Whereas I think
Exactly.
people think, well, I don't have time to teach someone to do it, but they're not thinking about the cumulative effect of after you teach it, you don't ever have to do it again.
Exactly. You know, and I learned this really wonderful thing. Actually, this was a referral from you, with Ari Mizell, who
Oh,
I love.
yes. I
I
love
heard him
Ari
on your
Mizell.
podcast.
Efficiency
Yeah.
coach.
A phenomenal. And he said, you know, one of the things that people get freaked out about is having to spend the time to train someone. You know, it takes a lot of time. And he said, here's what you do: have that person take the notes for you of what you're teaching them. And those notes should be so concise that they could hand it to someone on the street and they should be able to do it. And I was like,
I love
wow,
that.
it blew me away. So I still
Yes, and you know,
use
so
that.
other people can benefit. Let's mention his book, right, which is called The Replaceable Founder. Right after you buy Rachel's book, which is the Massage MBA, you can buy Ari's book. There we go. Oh, good. No, hold it up, please. It's
Sure.
so
It
pretty
has this
too. I love
ugly
the
not for
cover.
resale sticker because it's the author's copy, but it's called Massage MBA. Run your practice, love your life.
I love it. And congratulations on the #1 best-selling. That's so
Thank
awesome.
you. I
So
was really
great. So
excited.
proud of
Yeah.
you. We were talking throughout the pandemic when you were writing the book. So I feel like I watched this book evolve and I have some questions about it. But just to finish that reference, if people want to, you know, get better at outsourcing and delegating, I teach you to be a delegation ninja in $1 Million Women. If you haven't read that book yet, I have a whole chapter on it. It's chapter 7. It's also free when you go to scalewithjulia.com. You can download it. Or read the whole book, or get The Replaceable Founder. Not or and. I know you read a lot of business books, right?
So many business, but I try, you know, before having a baby, I probably read a business book a week because I'm just crazy in that regard. But
I'm sure that made a big difference, because you and I share that we didn't go to business school, right? We don't have an econ degree. And,
Yeah.
you know, those books, I know for me, really made it seem possible. What are like your top 3 business
Sure.
books that helped?
I think the first one that comes to mind is the E Myth, the entrepreneurial myth revisited. And what's so wonderful about the E Myth is he says, you know, here is why most small businesses fail, and here's what you can do about it. And I remember reading that really early in my career, and it just made such a huge difference because I was falling into that trap of trying to do everything. So the E Myth was really important. I love the 4-Hour Work Week. I think it's really inspiring to look at how he delegates and how he, you know, Tim Ferriss is a big lifestyle designer, so I'm just a huge fan of his. Obviously,
Yeah,
$1 Million Women is on my
Oh,
list.
thank you. Thank you. I was honored that I'm on your shelf. Here, twist your camera, because
Oh yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
proud to be
Shelf right
on the
here.
shelf.
I've got you up right above 4-Hour Work Week and right below another book called Rest, which is why rest is just as important as time for work.
Oh, I like that. I like that they're next to each other. $1 Million Women next to Rest. I mean, we always
Yeah,
say we want to help you
absolutely.
work, you know, smarter, not harder. The business should work for you, not you for the business. So being next to Rest is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
There's
you.
so many good business books. Yeah. Book Yourself Solid.
Those
is
are
also a
great
one.
recommendations. Thank you. And I do think that for women, like if you're watching right now and you're like, oh my God, $1 million in revenue, that seems so far off, right? The best place to start is just like Rachel and I did: start reading business books, find a coach, find a mentor, join a community of other women or women and men trying to go big, right? It doesn't have to. Rachel and I are both part of other communities, right? I was part of EO for many years. You're part of YEC. So there are so many places where you can do that. And $1 Million Women is actually launching a membership site where everyone can become a member. So look out for that soon. But let's dig into the book, Rachel. So I know one of the things I loved about it is that you told such a personal story of how you built your business from scratch, and you really were so vulnerable and shared so many of the hard times. What made you want to write this book and help more people build multi-million-dollar wellness books?
You know,
sorry, multi-million-dollar wellness companies. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Sure. I feel like there were so many times in my career early on where I felt like I was being exploited by employers. And this is not to say I haven't had phenomenal relationships with really wonderful bosses, but I know early in my career, I felt often exploited. I felt like a bystander. I didn't feel impactful in my career. And I remember just feeling so bad about that. I didn't have control over my time or my finances or my work relationships. And when
people
I think
didn't
about,
always act with integrity. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I remember the story you told about someone who was charging you rent, and then you later found out that the rent you were paying was 90% of the rent on the entire place. You weren't paying
yes.
50% of the rent. You're paying 90% of the rent.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. But you know what? I also think I always try to ask myself, this is a Tony Robbins thing. He'll ask yourself, what's great about this? You know, and what was great about that is when another opportunity came along that was just a little more expensive, I was like, oh, I should jump on this. You know, so it's all for the better. But you know, I have to say the book came from a place of, I remember how lonely and isolating and frustrating it was to start out. And I looked for business books in the massage space, and there was one that was really helpful at the time. But, you know, that had been written a few years before, and it hadn't really been updated for the way that, you know, technology had been changing so rapidly, and the world had been changing so rapidly with things like Google Business and Yelp and all these directory sites and SEO and websites. Like, so much had changed. And I read so many business books when I started out that were totally unrelated. And I realized there wasn't really a concise business Bible for massage therapists. There just wasn't like one place where you can say, okay, just tell me what to do, where to start, how to do it, what are best practices, what worked for you, what worked for some other people. And I interviewed some of the top minds in our industry specifically because I know that their perspective is going to be a little different from mine. I wanted to learn from them too. So there's just some phenomenal people in this book that were so helpful in writing it. And I stand on the shoulders of giants. There's some really wonderful people in the book that I've interviewed. And I feel like the book just came from a place of the same reason I got to be a massage therapist. I love helping people. And I just love helping people start businesses.
Well, and you know what? You've been so helpful. I have to just give you a shout out to the women in our community. When I posted about you coming live, there were women jumping on like, oh, she was my mentor. You know, like you've made time despite running your own business, having a baby this year, like you have still made time to pay it forward. And we so appreciate that. And it says so much about you. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I love working with people.
Well, the women you've worked with have been super grateful. And, you know, I want to go back to the book because I know that when I was reading it, I was like, I love this mix of your personal story, actual practical tips and tools that people can use right away, right down to like, how do you get press? How do you get more people to come to your, you know, massage business? What are a couple of the things that you think are essential for a wellness practitioner? Because it's not just massage, right? We're talking acupuncture, massage. What else falls in that category of wellness?
Sure. I've worked with a lot of psychotherapists, physical therapists. Right now I have a pelvic floor rehab clinic.
Amazing.
You know, but
so anybody who's seeing patients, right? They're seeing patients, or not. Maybe they don't even call them patients.
Yeah. Anyone who's like in a service-based business, really. Actually, I have like a tattoo artist who's a client now, which is totally unrelated. But you know, when you're dealing with a client-facing business that's often brick and mortar or sometimes mobile, you know, the types of issues that come up are actually pretty similar. And I think some of the biggest missed opportunities that I see, I never want to call it a mistake, right? Because we learn, but I do think some of the missed opportunities.
That was my question. So thank you. I was getting to like, what are the things people need to focus on to scale up? So thank you for reading that out.
I mean, I think it's the most important thing is that the internet is your storefront, right? So having a beautiful website that reflects your business, that's the first impression you're often making with new clients. And, you know, learning what search engine optimization is, learning that, you know, you can do it yourself. You don't have to hire someone to do it. It doesn't have to be spammy, but, you know, I think people don't even realize.
Hey, I'm back. I had Rachel Beider on as my guest and the internet was not cooperating, but now I think it is. So we're going to bring her back on. And we were talking about her multi-million-dollar massage business, Press Modern Massage, with locations all over the New York area, and her new book, Massage MBA, that is the #1 bestseller in the massage category on Amazon. So here we go. We're going to bring Rachel because we had more things we wanted to talk about. All right, she's coming. I know. Hey, there you are.
Hey, thanks. Sorry. Awesome.
Hey, you know what? We're entrepreneurs. We're not easily deterred.
Gotta go with the flow. The internet happens sometimes.
Exactly. But we're here. We're back. So yeah, there were a couple more things I wanted to ask you about the book. And I don't know if you heard me, you know, describing more of the book and the things I loved. Could you hear me when you went off?
No, it totally
okay.
for me. Yeah.
That's all right. Well, I'll watch it later. But I know one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you know, I started this CEO check-in by giving the Go Big tip about learn to manage your anxiety as a CEO? Because, we're CEOs, but we're also human beings. So of course we're dealing with anxiety and heightened anxiety in a pandemic, and heightened anxiety when you're trying to grow your business, right? Taking out loans, going out on a limb, hiring people, all the things you were talking about before. So you found something that was helpful to you. You talked about in the book called the 3 Ps. I'd love you to share that in case it's helpful for anyone who's listening.
Absolutely. So, for me, I think there's this wonderful therapist, Seligman, who identifies what he calls the 3 Ps of learned helplessness. And what that is your mind, which, is thousands and thousands of years old, will come up with, 3 specific ways that it will sabotage you a little bit. And so
is that what you mean by learned helplessness? Maybe we should just describe that a minute. I've read Martin Seligman, and I know what you're talking about, but if that's new for folks, what do you mean by that? Like learned helplessness?
So it's ways that your brain will sabotage you, and it will freeze and convince you that something isn't possible. And so the 3 ways that he has sort of specifically identified what he calls the 3 Ps of learned helplessness. The first is permanent. The second is pervasive. The third is personal. So for example, your mind will convince you whatever you're dealing with, it is permanent. So I feel bad. I'm always going to feel bad. Or this
it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse.
Yes. It's going to be over forever. Everything's going to be terrible. It's permanent. It's like this permanent state.
Yes, been there.
Yeah, it's easy to get into that headspace because, it's like we shut down for the shutdowns, during COVID, and it's easy for your brain to try to trick you and say, oh, this is permanent. This is never going to change. This is forever.
What if all my customers go away forever? What if we never can leave our homes again, right? There's so many ways we could do that.
Yeah. And then the second P, pervasive. It's going to take over every single area of your whole life, and I think about, oh my gosh, and just the thought that your brain would convince you whatever your problem is that you're having, it's permanent, it's pervasive, it's going to take over everything forever. And the last one, it's personal. I'm alone in this. No one understands me. No one's been through this, and what's funny is that brains have been wired to think this way for thousands of years. These thoughts are completely unoriginal. They're not even your own thoughts. This is just what brains do when they're stressed or scared. Your mind is not designed to be happy. Your mind is designed to keep you safe from, tigers and things. Like your brain is thousands of years old, and it's designed to keep you safe. And so, when I first heard this concept, that your problem, your brain will convince you your problem is permanent, pervasive, or personal, I burst into tears, because that's exactly how my brain works. It goes in that little spiral.
You were like, I've done all 3 Ps, and sometimes all at the same time.
For sure. And so, I think it's helpful to take a moment to notice whenever I'm having those kinds of thoughts, to take a step back and say, okay, brain, I see what you're up to. I see what's going on here, and I'm not going to fall for it. Like, I notice that you're jumping into this permanent, pervasive, personal, and I notice that this is happening, and I'm just going to take a moment to remember that I am a resilient, resourceful person, to really call on that deep well of knowledge, because if you're scared, you just don't have access to the resources of the rest of your mind. It really shuts you down, and you can't be creative when you're scared, and you can't start to make the impossible possible.
And sometimes you don't even do the very thing that would get you out of the jam, which is reach out for help, right? Some people, when they get scared, they retreat, they isolate.
Yeah. And I get that instinct because, I think also as women, it's something that we've been socialized to do is to be polite, to be demure, to not necessarily put ourselves out there. I love that quote, that well-behaved women rarely make history. I love thinking about that, because
that's one of my favorites too. And I would add to that socialization that we often are raised by very strong women, or our generation, I think many of us had strong women who modeled, well, you just do it all yourself. You just find a way to do it, right? You take on the extra work, you shut up and just get it all done. And in fact, that's a fast road to burnout, right?
Yeah,
like that's not actually a good model. I don't want to model that for my children. I don't know about you with your son. I want to model like when I'm having a hard time, I ask for help.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's 100% necessary, because otherwise you burn out and then you're no good to anyone.
That's right. Well, thank you for sharing those 3 Ps. And what it reminds me of is I went to a self-compassion workshop, which was something that I found online about a year and a half ago. And I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what is self-compassion? But I have a feeling I'm not doing it, which is why I went to the workshop. And it was Dr. Chris Germer, who's a Harvard professor, and he cited a lot of these same studies you're talking about, where when we're having a hard time, when we're feeling anxious, we do things like ruminating, which is an actual term. You can look it up in the dictionary. It means when you start with one bad thought and then you just go down this rabbit hole of like all the bad things that are going to happen. So he had two solutions to that, which sound similar to your PPP, but I just want to share them. And one is apparently labeling the thoughts really, really helps. And it's similar to what you're talking about, like, oh, am I doing these 3 Ps? So if you say like, oh, I'm being dramatic, or oh, I'm being super negative, or oh, I feel lonely, just saying it out loud actually helps create a little space between you and that state. Because when we're in a negative state, you tend to think, well, that's me. I am that negative state. Where no, you're amazing and you're strong and you're resilient and you're having a difficult moment. And then the second thing is to do something we all do in our community, which is called what could go right. And I think you have your own version of this. I want to hear about it. But we tell women to take out a piece of paper or take out your journal whenever you're feeling like, oh, everything's just terrible right now, and write at the top of it in big capital letters, what could go right? And then just like list 10 things. And I can't tell you how many times, Rachel, I've done that. And I look back at that a few weeks later and it's like, oh, actually, most of those things happened. It's just that I wasn't in touch with that at that moment.
Yeah.
What's your version of that?
For a really long time, I actually have it as like the screensaver of my cell phone. What if things turn out way better than you imagined?
I love that.
I think about this a lot because I feel like my brain tends towards, oh my gosh, what if, catastrophe happens and things turn out really badly. But I think it's important, if you're going to go in that direction, to also go in the direction of, well, what if things turn out way better than I imagined? Because I think, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But certainly if you're not optimistic and you're not, operating from that space of calm abundance, things probably won't turn out as well as you had hoped. So I think, one kind of begets the other.
I love that. And that's what we're talking about in terms of managing your anxiety, which I think is a big theme in your book. And that was my go big tip today. I do remember back when I had a job. It's a long time ago. I've not had a job in a while, but I was planning on leaving my job and I was very anxious about it. And so my instinct was, oh, I'm going to tell the 2 people who report to me that I'm leaving in 6 months, because I thought that would make me feel better. I'd feel less anxious. I don't like having this secret. But then I realized, that's not going to help them. Now they're going to be anxious. Oh my God, my boss is leaving. What's going to happen? I realized, I think that was one of the first times I realized it, Rachel. I was like, no, my job as a leader right now is to manage my anxiety, right? Yeah. And not follow that instinct of let me go tell them. Have you ever had a moment like that where as a leader, you realize I have to manage my anxiety?
That's right. Absolutely. I think, it's really important. While we were closed during COVID, I really wanted to take my cues from my employees, because with massage therapy, they're the people who are treating clients. And so it was really important for me to, in my mind, just take stock of what we had, take a moment, because I was very upset. I've never closed my business before. Maybe we've been closed for a snowstorm like 1 or 2 days, but we've never closed for months on end.
Oh my God. So, how many months were you closed?
We were closed for 5 months.
Unbelievable.
In New York City, it just, it hit hard at the beginning of March, and then we reopened in August. So, for me, it was very much a time to collect myself and think about, they need my leadership skills more than ever. They need me to present a unified, calm, strategic approach. And they need me to step up for them and really, like, if they are wanting to work, I need to make it as safe as humanly possible. I need to be very strategic. So, during that closure, I actually formed a group of women who also own massage businesses and spas all over the city. And we met once a week. And we talked about, what are our fears? What are our concerns? Where are the resources? What can we do? Should we buy our PPP together, or PPE rather, our protective gear together? So we have this buying power. And one of them had to actually close her business permanently. And we wanted to support her on that, and also make sure that her employees had new homes so that no one was left out, without a job. And we really just
so great you did that. I'm sure that was a game changer for all of you to have that kind of support.
Epic. I mean, it meant the world to me to have this group of women who had my back, who I had their back, and we really banded together during a difficult time. And I just feel like when things are hard, you have to find your community. You have to find your mentors. It's so important to have that, that accountability, and also just that support that comes from that community.
Well, I want to say again, thank you for sharing your story in your book, Massage MBA, because I think it's going to help so many people who have those same fears and anxieties of like, well, what happens if it doesn't work? And how do I hire? And when should I get my own studio? And you told in great detail how you built your empire and even how you survived, you know, the lockdown, and now how you're going to take it to even the next level. So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear what's coming up for you at Press Modern Massage in 2021.
Yeah, so I think, this is going to be a really interesting time to rebuild. There's, stress is at an all-time high, as I'm sure you know. And so I feel like there's phenomenal opportunity for the business. And, I'm not sure if we're going to acquire some other smaller businesses or check out some real estate that's becoming available on the market. I know I'm kind of poking around in some neighborhoods that excite me. And I think that it's going to be a year of growth for us. Certainly, I'm really thrilled about the consulting practice that's taken off in a really nice way. So wellness business consulting is doing really well. And, I'm working with a more diverse group of clients in the wellness space. And that's been really fun. And, I'm just looking forward to enjoying my son. He's 9 months old. So I'm also just, balancing that work life. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really cool year. I'm really excited.
It's going to be an amazing year for you. One of the things I said when you went off was when we paused at the last CEO check-in is that you wrote your entire book during the pandemic with a young baby at home, managing, your team in another state, and just had so much on your plate. So if you could do all that in 2020 with those challenges, I can only imagine what you're going to do in 2021 when we hope things smooth out a little bit. But, it's also a great reminder that even though we've lost a lot this year, there are a lot of new opportunities, right? And that's something you've been really proactive about, is that if stress is at an all-time high, people need to alleviate that through the wellness industry. So there's a big opportunity in the wellness industry, and you're one of the leaders in that space. And so if anyone watching has, a massage studio, acupuncture, psychotherapy, tattoo parlor, what did I miss, Rachel?
Oh yeah, anything in that space.
Yes, the services wellness space. Please check out Rachel's new book, Massage MBA, and follow her on Instagram. And you can also I think they can hire you for some consulting, right? How can people find you? What's the best way to find you?
Sure. The website is Wellness Business Consulting. There's a link in my bio. And I do one-on-one consulting, and I'm actually coming out with a 30-day email challenge course as well. So stay on the lookout for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with our community. I loved having you, and I know that you're going to have an amazing year. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your support. You've been a big help and mentor for me, and I just appreciate you. And I'm so glad that we're connecting this year.
Oh, my pleasure. Me too. I'm going to let you go. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That was so much fun. One of the silver linings of the pandemic for me personally was just getting to spend more time getting to know people I had met, briefly at some event. Rachel was one of them. We connected at an event, I don't know, over a year ago, just had a great connection. I think she'd read $1 Million Women. And then during the pandemic, we jumped on a bunch of calls and helped each other with things in our businesses. And I'm just so excited for her book and the big year she's going to have. And if you're not feeling like, woohoo, I'm excited for my big year, well, let us help you with that. In our community, it's all about #GoBigTogether. So if you're not feeling like I've got a plan, I've got a community, I've got a coach, that all is even more affordable than it's ever been. We have pandemic pricing right now so that we can help more women go into 2021 feeling confident, feeling strong, knowing the right steps to make, and how they can take advantage of the new opportunities. Because if you take away anything from Rachel, other than that anxiety should be a superpower, can be a superpower, it's that where there is adversity, there are also opportunities. So let us help you find those. If you're not sure where they are in your business, just reach out through scalewithjulia.com or alex@juliapim.com, and you can make an appointment with us to talk about your business. It was great having this time with you today. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and managing your anxiety. You've got some great books to check out now, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone. Bye, Rachel. Bye, B. Kaya. Bye, Ripson. Bye, son of somebody. Bye, Lori. That's one of our graduates. Good to see you here. Have a great day, everybody.